Hello to the fellow YouTube community. Today I wanted to talk about something pretty serious. You can call it a diatribe if you want to, but it's something that's been bugging me for a long time, and I think it has to do, with something that people don't realize is actually going on underneath their nose, so to speak. If you just sit down and think a little bit about what happens, in my case, um, I got assaulted a couple times actually when I was going out to bars. Um, Now, yes, of course, you would say, yeah, well, it's normal. You're drunk. That's what's supposed to happen, right? Well, let me tell you what happened. This was actually in December last year. Um, I went to the bar, just hung out a little bit, and this guy just walks up behind me, and he said, yeah, he grabs me, like, and tells me to just leave like that, and he tries to push me to the back door, whereas I'm trying to go through the front door. Once I go through the front door, I'm not happy with the way he touched me, so I did insult him a few times, and that was enough for him to lunge at me on the street and start punching me, and he left me like some really big bruises on my face that lasted like 4 days, and I called the police because there was no police there. I had to call them. And yes, and also my nose was busted, and I was bleeding everywhere. My pants, my shoes, my shirt were covered in blood. So the police came, and they were making fun of me. Like I might even name them, the city that was involved, but they were not taking me seriously, even though I had blood all over. And I told the I told them, and they didn't take my side of the story. They took the side of the guy who runs the business. That's unfortunate. It seems to reflect the way society thinks, at least in this part of the state that I'm living in. I call it redneck Republican mentality, that everything's money. Money, money. They're the big business, so they're the ones who are more credible than I am. I'm just a poor peasant, and I have to put up with their crap. And that's the thing. That's how laws are structured in this country, in this state. They always give the right of reason to the guy who owns the premises or the venue. And I mean, it seems like they're prioritizing property rights over human rights. And unfortunately, it's one of those states where if you let's say you're in someone's house, and the owner is not happy with you and maybe suspects you of something, they have the right to murder you, and they would probably get away with it under the whole king of the castle laws that exist in some states. That's very dangerous and crazy, stupid, and uncivilized, in my opinion. And the thing is, that's the same reason the, they use to justify some guy knocking the crap out of me on the street. And the police was like coming up with all kinds of excuses that the cameras were not working, or they would not record anything, etc., etc. I mean, this is like the fourth time I had to deal with the police in this city, and the police never really does anything. Like, I've also gotten stuff stolen from me. I was sleeping on. I passed out. I was drunk. I passed out on the bus stop, and my pockets were empty the following morning. I called the police. The person was actually using my card, trying to use my card. The police never did anything about that either. Um, yes, well, basically that, and so that, and the time I got things stolen, the bar situation I just described, and recently, um, I just got out of I was at a bar, and I got kicked out apparently. I was on the street, and this dude comes up to me and starts dissing me, like he knows me and accusing me of like messing with his girl. And he comes up to me, and I have to get away from him, like he's gonna hit me. But that wasn't just that time. On my way back, he went at me again, and he followed me a restaurant. I tried to flee from him and go into a restaurant, so maybe someone could stick up for me, or there would be cameras that could see what happened. And the guy punched me. I mean, he didn't punch me that hard. I was bleeding just a little bit here on my brow. Um, and then when I was walking on campus, I didn't make much of it. The police stops me, and what happens? They sit me down, they make me remove my personal belongings. They tell me to sit down like I'm being arrested, and, and this is the police from the university, the campus police, and they measure my blood pressure. They have the EMS come in, and they prick my finger. I'm like, in retrospect, I mean, this was only like 4 days ago. If I think about it, why did they prick my finger? I mean, it seemed at first maybe they were trying to measure my blood sugar. But now that I think about it, what if they tried to take some DNA from me? That's not doesn't make me very comfortable. I just sent them an email, see what information I can get about this, because the way the police, and that brings me to my main point, the way the government operates in some states, or even the federal government or the police, is just so mysterious, and so it's like they're waging a war against civilians. And we talk about countries like Venezuela, understandably, yeah. We talk about countries like Venezuela and North Korea. Venezuela, for example, they have a police force that represses people from expressing themselves and persecutes for political reasons. But who are we to say that the same is not true here in the United States? This so-called land of the free. Some states, I will not name them unless necessary, but unfortunately, some states, it seems like they persecute people. How in the world? I mean, what country does this? First of all, I have lived in Argentina for 8 years. Totally different. I've also lived in Australia for about 8 months. Completely different from what you see in the United States. I've visited other countries, Canada, Mexico, Chile, Uruguay. World of a difference. But in the United States, you have this, I don't know how to put it. It's an obsession with showing how Puritan the place is, but in a horrible way. They persecute people. And how in the world do you explain that universities have to have their own police department? What kind of madness is that? Why in the world, in a place that is just supposed to be a place of higher learning? You don't see that in other countries. They have police, not the city police, not the sheriff. No, they have like its own police. Like you're talking about some country. I mean, think about that. I mean, think about how much power is concentrated into a so-called institution of higher learning. It's a land grant, so it's a land that the state gives, so that some governing body can determine how it's going to make money. And they act privately when they charge you tuition, and they act publicly or as a charitable organization when they're asking for private donations. I mean, that is just pure and absolute abuse. And the way a university police behaves is also consistent with that sort of abuse. When they can just stop you because you're walking and make you remove your things and intimidate you, try to make a severe case out of everything, like treating you like you're a potential murderer. What kind of world are we living in this country? We need to wake up to the horrible ways that we are being manipulated by whoever is in power, whether it's the government, the police, some university, maybe it's all of them, the big businesses, banks, what else? Banks. We have also insurance companies. They make so much money. We are basically slaves to those entities. We work so that we can pay for car insurance that is imposed on us. It's not an option. In most cases, yes, insurance is optional. When you own a home, unless you have a mortgage, or whatever you own, but not with a car. And You have to, of course, pay the petroleum they use to run it. I mean, those things, if you just put them together, you realize what a scary country to live in, right? And, the police is, like in certain states or even in the federal level, like everything is done so to facilitate the abuses by the police or by the criminal justice system or by the government. When, for example, they allow um, police pretty much to take a DNA sample without a warrant in most cases. And that's what I fear. What if they prick my finger just to take my DNA? Now it's something that weighs on me for the rest of my life because, you know, DNA has proven to be not as accurate as you might imagine, or hasn't been exercised in the correct way and implemented as evidence correctly. But not only that, it's DNA is a bit of a double-edged sword because what's not to say that maybe a certain crime scene has your DNA, but you weren't involved in it? How do you prove that you weren't involved in it? That is reasonable cause. And how is a DNA different from other forms of unreasonable search and seizure? It is terrible. I mean, this is not human. We don't get treated like humans in this country in some states. That is unfortunate. People are willing to sell their souls, their human rights, just so that they can work and pay for car insurance and pay utilities, taxes, and taxes that they don't even know where it goes. Um, doesn't really benefit anyone because tax money, where does it, I mean, it doesn't go to hospitals. It doesn't go to education. I mean, at least when it comes to advanced education, it goes to roads so that you can drive your car that you pay insurance for. That is unfortunate, and that's what you live for. And then you live so that you have to be afraid of the many laws they create because what does a Senate have? Like a state Senate or a federal Senate or Congress, House of Representatives. I mean, they're this powerful elite, and they get paid to sit on their behinds every day or all day just to dictate how you live. And nowadays we have advanced technology that should allow us to exercise direct democracy without having to delegate that power to someone who simply sits down like some elite, wasting our money, abusing power. Because it seems like the new laws that come out in certain states, the hardcore states, and I'm sure you know which ones, it seems like they have no end but to just constrain your liberties to no end, and and it's like Congress, Senate, or the local state governments. Um, it's like they have to find a way to keep justifying their job, just like the police. Um, there's no you don't need a police to persecute you like that. That is unacceptable anywhere else in the world except here in the U.S. Why in the hell are people accepting that condition of life? How can you possibly accept that? Wake up, America. You are being enslaved by some unknown force, some unknown interest. Whether how your food is manipulated, or maybe when the police is spying on you, maybe. I mean, call me crazy, but I mean, I'm not talking about personal experience here, but just sit down and think about it. Just drum over the facts. How the police works, especially if you lived in other countries, and do a little comparison and see what kinds of freedoms you really have in the United States. Don't take your freedoms for granted. Don't let anyone intimidate you into forfeiting your freedoms or your rights. Always fight for those and defend them, not through violence, but through reason and through communication. Stand up for yourself, speak up, ask questions, ask for information, make a change. Go to your local government, make sure that the right issues are being voted on. Don't let yourself be enslaved like slavery. I mean, slavery didn't cease to exist. too long ago. I mean, we're talking 150 years ago. Racism didn't end until 50 years ago. So why wouldn't it be surprising that maybe we're still living in that era of slavery or evil, and maybe we need to do something like history has shown that we have to do something about it. Well, that's pretty much my my speech. It's really sad. I hope some of you get something out of it if you're watching this. Here I am just exercising my First Amendment rights, and you know, while they last. Be sure to subscribe if you liked the video, comment, and give a thumbs up if you liked it. I'm always looking at my channel. I have not gotten any activity yet so far, but you never know. That could change. You know, I'm always open to new ideas, new ways to do the video. Alrighty, guys. See you later.